This Day in Sports History. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. It's August 11th, and on this day in 1974, Lee Trevino won the PGA Championship and attributed a large part of it to something he found in the attic earlier in the week. This was Trevino in his prime. The Merrimax was 34 at this point, and he had 4 major tournament wins to his credit, 2 U.S. Open titles and 2 British Opens. 74 had been a pretty decent year for him as well, with a win in New Orleans, playing 4 rounds there to become the first golfer to win a tournament and not record a single bogey on the scorecard for the week. He'd finished in the top 10 7 times and came into the PGA Championship, played at Tanglewood, just outside of Winston-Salem, North Carolina this week, after a 4th place finish at the Canadian. So he was playing pretty well. But he did not get off to the best start on Thursday, shooting a 3/73. His putter was letting him down a bit. He did put the pieces back together to shoot 66 the following day to put him back in the picture. Now, Trevino had rented a house for the week near the Tanglewood course, and on Tuesday, he did a little rummaging around the attic, and he came across a putter of the owner's. Trevino was quoted saying, "It was my kind of stick. Flat, hook-faced, and with a paddle grip." He decided to put it in his bag for Saturday's 3rd round, not minding replacing his other flat stick. He said of that, "When you look at one of these things long enough, you want to get rid of it, like your wife." He came out on Saturday and fired a 68 to take the lead over Bobby Cole and Jack Nicklaus. Now, today's PGA Tour pro clinging to a 1-shot lead heading into the final round would probably hit the range for a couple of hours, working out some hitch or thing that they noticed, and then would go have a protein smoothie or something like that. But this was 1974, and it was Lee Trevino. He said after his 3rd round he played tennis for an hour, went for a run, shot some hoops in the driveway, and then he sat down to an episode of Sanford & Son before finally dozing off, with his goal being to wear himself completely out so he could sleep on the lead in peace without waking up in the middle of the night from a nightmare double bogey or something. And it worked. The putter that was probably going to wind up in a yard sale at some point in the near future, and a routine of watching Red Fox screaming about the big one, helped him go out on this day and shoot a final round 69 to beat Nicklaus by 1 shot. And it was the 4th time in 6 years that Nicklaus finished second to Trevino in a major. On this day in 1991, the most unlikely person ever won the PGA Championship. John Daly was hanging out at his house in Germantown, Tennessee on Wednesday afternoon, August 7th, when the phone rang. Daly picked it up, and on the other end of the line was PGA Tournament Director Kenny Anderson. Daly was the 9th alternate to play in that week's PGA Championship. Anderson told him that they'd lost 4 golfers already from the field, and there was a possibility for him to play. Now, normally in a major, 1 or 2 may drop out. Injuries like Paul Azinger's lingering pain from recent shoulder surgery, or in Lee Trevino's case, the course just didn't fit his game. It was too long. When Nick Price let Anderson know that his wife was about to give birth and he was withdrawing from the PGA Championship, that was the 5th golfer to withdraw. Now, this was Wednesday evening before the tournament teed off. Anderson got on the phone to the next alternate on the list. Bill Sanders was that guy, and he said, no thanks. Mark Lai was the next man up, and he also declined. Brad Bryant was alternate number 8, who was home on his couch in Orlando when his phone rang. He also said no. It was too far, and he wouldn't be able to get a practice round in, and he just figured he didn't want to go that far and just not play the weekend. Daly was the next name on the list, and he was already en route. That's how close this Cinderella story of epic proportions nearly did not happen. Daly made the 8-hour, 500-mile journey to Carmel, Indiana for a chance to tee it up in the PGA Championships. He didn't actually get the confirmation that he was in the tournament until he got to his hotel room in Carmel after midnight. Now, Price knew Daly from years before when John played the South African golf tour, and so he offered up his caddy Jeff Squeaky Medlin to use for the tournament. After a few minutes on the range, it was time to grip it and rip it. So put this in perspective for a few seconds. Here's Daly, a 25-year-old PGA Tour rookie who had a top 10 at the Chattanooga Classic, but had only managed to make the cut in 13 of his 24 events that year. He'd been a professional golfer for 3 years. He'd played on the Hogan Tour and on other tours in different parts of the world, but this was a golf major. Where this tournament was held was Crooked Stick, and he had never played that golf course before, so he had no familiarity with it, no chance for a practice round like everybody else had gotten. And this was not some short muni. This was a 7,300-yard par 72 beast. It was the second longest course in a PGA Championship at that point. Of course, a layout of that length played right into John's game. So there was nothing to do but to do it, and he went out and he fired a 3-under par 69 to finish the first round 2 shots off the lead. By comparison, 2-time U.S. Open champ Curtis Strange shot 81 that day, and he withdrew. Now, with a little familiarity of the course, Daly carded a 5-under 67 in round 2. Now, he didn't just make the cut. His name was on top of the leaderboard at this point at 8 under, and his fans grew by legions. The gallery gawked at his big takeback with the driver going way past parallel, the ball rocketing off his club face, soaring 300-plus yards down the fairway, punching holes in the ozone layer, as CBS broadcaster Gary McCord commented. Nobody really took note of his feather touch around the greens, though, but he was truly driving for show and putting for dough. He was on fire. But sitting atop the leaderboard brings pressure. Many crumble under that pressure of sleeping on a lead, and it would have been understandable if Daly had slipped. Everybody sort of expected him to do it anyway, but he didn't. A third-round 69 put him 3 shots clear of the field. So did Big John head on back to his hotel room after his third round and chill the night before the biggest round of golf that he would ever play in his life? Nope. Instead, Daly, who had been a pretty good place kicker back in high school, made the trip to the Hoosier Dome, where the Indianapolis Colts were playing a preseason game against the Seattle Seahawks. He was brought down to the field between quarters, and he actually kicked a field goal in his street clothes. He was more Mark Moseley than Garo Yepremian in his run-up, but CBS broadcaster Jim Nantz said he witnessed it along with the 48,000 at the Hoosier Dome that night. The next day, this day in 1991, Daly was as loose as he was the night before. Even an opening hole bogey didn't shake him. He came back with a birdie at the second, another at the 5th. He had a 5-shot lead after the 8th hole. He broke his string of 7 straight pars with a birdie at 13, added another at 15 to push his lead to 5 shots, which gave him enough of a cushion to absorb a double bogey at 17. A par at the last, and the blonde-haired, mulleted John Daly had done the improbable, if not the impossible. He finished 3 shots clear of the field, going from 9th alternate to PGA champion. He cashed a $230,000 winner's check, changing his life in a span of 4 days, and the world had been introduced to a true one-of-a-kind. Daly was the first PGA Tour rookie to win a major in 15 years. On this day in 1950, legendary New York Yankee Joe DiMaggio was benched for the first time in his career. Manager Casey Stengel was looking to change things up as his team faced off with the Philadelphia Athletics. The Yankees had lost the day before and slipped 5 games out of the American League lead. DiMaggio, the man who held the record for hitting safely in 56 consecutive games, was mired in a slump. He was hitting .279 and had only picked up 4 hits in his previous 38 at-bats. So instead on this day, Stengel penciled in Cliff Mapes to play center field and hit seventh. Mapes only picked up one hit in his 4 plate appearances that day, but it was a big one. In the 7th inning, Mapes hit a 2-run shot with 2 outs to give the Yankees the 7-5 lead, and they went on to beat the A's 7-6. DiMaggio would not make it back on the field until the 17th, but he was a late-inning defensive replacement in that game, and he didn't get a plate appearance. He would not make it back into the starting lineup until the 18th, when DiMaggio went 1 for 4 with an RBI against the same Athletics, this time in Philly. Stengel had a bit of a tense relationship with DiMaggio, and one of the most embarrassing moments of Joe D's career in a game the following year in July of 1951, Stengel removed DiMaggio in the 2nd inning of that game, in which DiMaggio was already standing in center field. In that instance, he had a gloveless teammate trot out to center to deliver the bad news to Joe, and he was replaced by a rookie. He retired after that 51 season. How about this classy move by the Atlanta Braves on this day in 1968? Satchel Paige was looking for a team, any major league team, to sign him. Paige, a veteran of the Negro Leagues and a pitcher who made his debut in the major leagues with the Cleveland Indians in 1948 at the age of 42, was 158 days shy of the 5-year minimum to qualify for a pension. Paige had talked with 19 of the major league teams up to this point, and all had said no. Paige was 62 years old, and not many figured he had much to offer. But Braves president William Bartholomew decided to do the right thing, and so he said yes when Paige reached out to him on this day. He signed him as a part-time pitcher and as an advisor. At the press conference announcing the signing the following day, Bartholomew said, "Satchel Paige is one of the greatest pitchers of all time. Baseball would be guilty of negligence should it not assure this legendary figure a place in the pension plan." Paige was added to the active roster, but he never made an appearance. He did lend his expertise to the Braves staff, though, instructing on technique and conditioning. But the biggest thing was the fact that Satchel Paige was able to spend the time needed to secure his much-deserved pension from Major League Baseball. And the state was also a big one for home run milestones. On this day in 1929, Babe Ruth became the first to hit 500 career home runs. Of course, he was also the first to hit 200, 300, and 400 career home runs. Ruth was alone for 11 years as a member of the 500 Homer Club. It would not be until Jimmy Fox hit his 500th in 1940 that Ruth would have a companion on that list. On this day in 1971, Harmon Killebrew hit career homers number 499 and 500 to join the club as well, and in 1980, Reggie Jackson hit career home run number 400. It would be another 4 years for Mr. October to become the 13th major leaguer to get to 500. And on this day in 2020, the Columbus Blue Jackets and Tampa Bay Lightning set an NHL record combining for 151 shots on goal. This is obviously not a typical time of year when we're talking about hockey. Of course, 2020, COVID, the NHL season was shut down in March, and the playoff pods were started back on August 1st. This was Game 1 of the playoff series between the Blue Jackets and the Lightning. The game went to 5 OTs, and when Tampa's Braden Point took shot number 151, he scored the game winner. This was also the 4th longest game in NHL history. The 151 combined shots was equaled in May of 2022, when the Pittsburgh Penguins and New York Rangers played a 4-3 game in 3 OTs. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. If you're like me, you probably thought that the term horsepower was a pretty close correlation to what a single horse could perform, and yet that is not the case. A horse typically has more than 1 horsepower. A 1993 study illustrated that the maximum power a horse can produce is around 24 horsepower. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.